Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the sources, pull out the key insights, and help you get truly informed without feeling overwhelmed. Today we're going to challenge some maybe deeply ingrained ideas about Christian hope. Do we really get what ancient texts truly say about the afterlife? Or even a book as complex as Revelation?
It's easy to fall into that, isn't it? We tend to read these ancient writings through, very modern lenses, and that can lead to a pretty narrow, sometimes even skewed view of what the Bible actually holds out as hope. So this deep dive, it's really about peeling back those layers, trying to uncover that original vibrant hope, the one meant for its first hearers.
Okay, so our mission for you listening is to unpack these core ideas, resurrection, the kingdom of God, and then see how Revelation isn't just predicting the future, but how it offers this really urgent, powerful call within its own time. We're drawing on some serious academic work here, studies on Christian eschatology, and end times beliefs, and detailed analyses that really rethink how we've traditionally read Revelation. Expect some surprises.
Right, let's start with death and the afterlife. This is where imaginations often run wild, yeah?
We see such a huge variety of beliefs and practices around death today. It's a massive shift from, say, the 1950s when it was the great unmentionable. Now you have films like Four Weddings and a Funeral tackling it head on. But does talking about it more mean we understand the original biblical idea better?
Not necessarily. A lot of what you hear in popular Christian circles may be reinforced by hymns or prayers. It often gives you a kind of partial, maybe even distorted picture of the full biblical hope. The default assumption for many is just, a disembodied heaven, that our souls just float off somewhere, and that's the end goal.
Okay, let's unpack that. Because, for lots of people, resurrection just equals life after death.
Yeah.
Simple as that. But back in the ancient world, did that word mean something more specific? Maybe something surprising?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. In that context, resurrection, it always meant something happening to the body, always. It wasn't just a synonym for, the popular idea of a soul living on somewhere else. That's a really crucial difference. Early Christians understood something totally unique happened to Jesus. His bodily resurrection, that physical event, that's what confirmed he was the Messiah.
Ah, okay. And that connects to what some scholars call this two-step belief that early Christians had. It wasn't just one thing.
Exactly. Two steps. First, there's death. And what comes immediately after, maybe being with Christ, a state of bliss, but that's the intermediate stage. The second and final step is a totally new bodily existence in a completely remade world.
So, like one scholar put it, resurrection isn't life after death. It is life after life after death.
Wow. Yeah, and seeing that helps us understand how certain kinds of spirituality today, the sort of just passing through idea, can accidentally drift towards what's basically a Gnostic view, seeing the physical world as unimportant, maybe even bad. The idea becomes that our souls are just waiting to escape this material world and get back to some non-material place.
Which is so different from the Bible's starting point, isn't it?
Yeah.
Genesis begins with creation as this act of love. God sees everything he made and says, it was very good. Humans were meant to be stewards, reflecting God in that good creation.
Right. And if you blur that line between creation and God, you edge towards a kind of pantheism where it's really hard to make sense of evil, let alone address it.
Precisely.
When you follow that thread to the end, the ultimate picture we get in, say, Revelation 21 and 22, it's not about souls getting beamed up to heaven. No, it describes the New Jerusalem coming down from heaven to earth, uniting them. Heaven and earth joined forever.
Wow.
God's plan is to remake both and join them together. It's this huge cosmic redemption, not just a personal escape plan.
Okay, so if our basic ideas about heaven and the afterlife need rethinking, what does that do to our understanding of salvation itself? Is it bigger than just saving souls for eternity?
Oh, much bigger. Yeah. Salvation, biblically speaking, seems to be threefold. One, it's about whole human beings, body, soul, everything, not just spirits. Two, it's deeply about the present right now, not just pie in the sky when you die. And three, this is critical. It's about what God does through us, not just what God does to us or for us.
That really does sound like a radical shift for many. If salvation isn't this escapist thing, or just about being quiet and pious, what does that mean for how we actually live day to day?
It means our common understanding of the kingdom of God might be a bit off. It's not about God pulling us out of the world. It's more like God making us his agents, his workers, for the transformation of this world. Looking forward to that day the prophet Isaiah talked about, when the earth shall be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea. It's about tangible change here.
Okay, now that gets really interesting, this huge vision of transformation.
Yeah.
How does that land in our ordinary lives? What do we actually do with that idea?
Well, it calls us to what you might call building for the kingdom. Think about it. Every act of love, of gratitude, of kindness, every piece of art or music that's inspired by goodness, by God, every bit of time spent teaching someone, caring for the vulnerable, every prayer, every effort to share good news, build community, live rightly, all of it, the idea is, finds its way somehow through God's resurrecting power into the new creation he'll eventually make.
Huh.
It means fundamentally, as Paul said, your labor is not in vain.
So this idea that what we do now isn't just temporary fluff. It's actually accomplishing something that will become part of God's new world. That gives daily life a whole different weight, doesn't it? And that sense of active, transformative hope connects really well, actually, to a book that's, let's face it, often totally misunderstood. Revelation. People see it as just bizarre, maybe inconsistent, or worse, just fuel for a harsh turn or burn message. But we need to get behind that, right, to its original purpose.
Absolutely. To really get Revelation, you have to dig into its specific time and place, the socio-historical context, especially the Roman Empire's shadow looming over everything. This is where things like empire studies or post-colonial criticism come in handy. They're academic tools. They help us read the text from the perspective of those who were, well, under the boot of empire, trying to recover those marginalized voices, and to see the political dimension that often gets stripped away in later readings.
Right. In Rome, I mean, they were masters of propaganda, weren't they? They constantly pushed this sovereign narrative about their own greatness. How did they spread that message?
They used everything, both static propaganda, things you see, coins, inscriptions, huge temples, paintings, frescoes, and enacted propaganda, things you experience, like those massive, over-the-top triumphal parades through the city.
Right.
And the messages were pretty clear. One big one: Rome is favored by the gods. Think of Augustus bragging about fixing 82 temples, building new ones, all showing divine backing. Another huge message was Pax Romana, Roman peace, that Rome brought security, prosperity. You see this all over coins from the Flavian emperor's themes of hope, stability, even the goddess peace-burning weapons.
And the Flavians, Vespasian, Titus, Domitian, they came to power after chaos, right? And they really used the conquest of Judea, the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE, things like that huge triumphal march in Rome, the Arch of Titus, which still stands, even building the Colosseum with spoils from the war. They used all that as like proof they were the legitimate rulers, which sadly also fueled anti-Jewish feeling across the empire.
Yeah, exactly. And this historical backdrop is why dating Revelation is so important for understanding its dialogue with the empire. The vast majority of modern scholars place its writing in the last years of Domitian's reign, so somewhere between 92 and 96 CE.
Okay, I know there are other theories, some say earlier, during Nero's time, or even before Jerusalem fell in 70. But why do most scholars lean towards that later date, under Domitian?
Yeah.
And what was persecution like then? Was it, Christians being thrown to lions everywhere?
Well, the later date fits better with the book's internal evidence, particularly its consistent imagery of a heavenly temple. It mentions it again and again, Revelation 3.13, 7.15, 11.1, and so on. It doesn't talk about the physical temple in Jerusalem, which is gone by then. As for persecution under Domitian, it probably wasn't empire-wide massacres, not consistently anyway. It was more like an atmosphere of tension. A lot of non-physical pressure, social ostracism, economic boycotts, intense pressure to conform, especially to the imperial cult worshipping the emperor. Now, that could escalate to physical harm or death in certain places for certain people. And that tension definitely ramped up later under Trajan in the early 2nd century. We see that in Pliny the Younger's letters, describing how he interrogated suspected Christians. Make them pray to Roman gods, offer incense and wine to the emperor's statue, curse Christ. Those who refused faced execution.
Okay, so putting all that together, Revelation isn't some abstract code book about the distant future. It's a direct, punchy critique of power aimed right at the Roman world its first readers were living in, trying to help them see clearly and stand firm. Let's dive deeper into how it critiques Rome, the imagery of the beasts, Babylon. What do those symbols point to?
Yeah, there's pretty strong agreement among scholars here. The beast from the sea in Revelation 13, that's almost certainly the Roman Empire itself, its political and military might. And the beast from the earth, the second beast, that's generally seen as representing the imperial cult, the whole system that promoted and enforced emperor worship.
So when Revelation calls Rome Babylon, it's using this powerful Old Testament symbol for an arrogant, oppressive empire. It's condemning Rome as this system built on violence, conquest, military brutality, political tyranny, economic exploitation, the works.
Yes, but here's a really important point. Revelation condemns Rome not just for persecuting Christians, it mourns the slaughter of all her innocent victims. It shows this incredible solidarity with everyone oppressed by the empire throughout history.
Wow.
That gives the book a much broader, more universal significance. It speaks against unjust power systems everywhere, in any time.
Okay, but we have to talk about the violence in the book itself. The language can be really harsh, right? Fierce rhetoric, harsh tones of judgment. It makes people uncomfortable. Some scholars just see it as, letting off steam, maybe vengeful fantasies. How should we approach that?
It's a fair question. That rhetoric is strong, and it's definitely meant to provoke a reaction, to strip away the masks and expose evil for what it is. But it doesn't necessarily mean the book is advocating for violence from believers. The core message really is that the decisive battle is already won. It was won by the Lamb, by Jesus, through his sacrifice on the cross. Like it says in Revelation 12, they conquered him, Satan, by the blood of the Lamb. Victory comes through sacrifice, not brute force.
And that interpretation changes how you see the end, doesn't it? Like when Satan is finally defeated in Revelation 20, it's not described like some new epic war. It's more like a dramatization of a previous defeat.
Yeah.
Almost like in a Roman triumph parade where they drag the defeated enemy king through the streets as proof the victory was already secured.
Exactly like that. It's showing the outcome is already certain because of Christ's victory. As one writer put it, of course no war is narrated, for the battle is already won by the faithful testimony of Jesus. Which then brings us to how we read some of the really tricky passages, like the 144,000 in Revelation 14. They're described as male virgins who have not dirtied themselves with women. What do we do with that? Well, reading it in context, the focus seems to be on symbolic purity and total faithfulness to Christ, contrasting with spiritual adultery or compromise with the empire, symbolized as the whore, Babylon. It's likely not about literal gender or celibacy.
Okay, so the 144,000 could represent all faithful Christians, men and women, who are called to resist compromising with the corrupt system, to stay spiritually pure, loyal to the Lamb, even if it means suffering or martyrdom. They're like the spotless counter-image to the compromised system, ready to be united with Christ.
That's a very common and compelling interpretation, yes. They become the spotless virgin martyrs, transformed into the worthy bride for the Lamb. It's powerful symbolic language about loyalty. And think about the imagery of fire, which appears a lot, chapters 8, 14, 18, 19, 20. Fire can mean different things. Sometimes it's a sign of God's presence, like the pillar of fire guiding Israel. Other times, it's definitely about divine judgment against oppression, against Babylon, Rome. But it can also signify divine purification, not necessarily burning people, but burning away sin, corruption, impurity leading to liberation, like release from exile. Understood this way, it can actually support a hopeful, nonviolent reading.
What strikes me is how these images, these metaphors in Revelation, they aren't just neat little codes with one single meaning. They're described as open-ended.
Yeah.
They seem to almost demand that you, the reader, the listener, get involved in figuring out the meaning. It requires personal engagement and active reading.
Precisely. It's not a book meant for passive consumption. That active engagement is key. It allows the text's critique of power, its vision of hope, to speak freshly into our world. It challenges our own assumptions about empire, justice, what faithful resistance looks like today. It forces us to connect the dots.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we've covered a lot of ground. We've seen how maybe our standard ideas about Christian hope need a refresh. Resurrection being fundamentally bodily. Salvation being about transforming the present. The kingdom of God calling us to act in this world. And Revelation, well, far from being just weird predictions, it's this incredibly relevant critique of power from its own time, offering a stark, powerful vision of hope through resistance and faithfulness.
Yeah, so the big takeaway question for you might be this. If God's ultimate goal is the recreation of this world, making all good things new, and if what we do now, our work, our acts of kindness, our pursuit of justice and beauty, if that's genuinely building for the kingdom and will somehow be part of that new creation, how does that change how you look at your everyday life, your job, your relationships, your efforts, big or small, to make things better right here, right now?
It's a powerful thought to leave you with. How can understanding these ancient, often tricky texts actually empower you to see and even join in with the ongoing work of new creation in your own life, your own community, starting today?